Hi, welcome to my other show. My name is Susan Rushton, and this is Muse. This program, you can see me being delighted. This program is the one on which I get to talk to people who are visited by the Muse, who pay attention to people, to the aura, the muses, who talk about music, drama, writing, singing, art, and that's what Muse is all about. Today, my guest is Faythe Vollrath, who has been part of the Auburn Symphony, and you are currently part of the Auburn Symphony. And we met in the Placer High Auditorium early 2022. No, it wasn't early 2022, it was early 2020. The last concert conducted by Peter Jaffe before he left the Auburn Symphony. And I went on stage and talked to Faythe and asked her to be my guest, and that would have been any minute. And then the pandemic came. So here she is, and the pandemic is, still hanging around, but we all wore our masks before we came in here. Faythe, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Susan. I've been looking forward to this for about 2 years now almost, right?
Yes, good. And I should have mentioned to you that if you're interested in finding out more about the Auburn Symphony, please do, auburnsymphony.com. And if anything, and it will, piques your interest about Faythe, she has a website, Faythe Vollrath, faythevollrath.com. So, why are you a musician, Faythe?
That is a great question. I think music brings so much joy to so many people, and it does to me playing, but I think also sharing that music gives other people joy when they listen, and also me when I get to share it with them. I think a lot of times we take live music for granted because there's so much music available to us. You can turn on the radio or the TV, or you have your iPod or Pandora, all of that. And so I think there's something uniquely special about being able to hear it live.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's really fun to share that with people.
Yeah. For one thing, there are human beings playing this music, human beings just like you, and who have this magnificent talent and are presenting this to us, to me. And I love it when we are breathing the same air. I just love that. And I missed it so much when we couldn't do that and during the pandemic. Oh my gosh. So I'm assuming that you all see at least part of this machine, this part of this instrument, in front of us in this very modest space, is one of Faythe's harpsichords. This is the tiny harpsichord, and we will hear her play it soon. How many harpsichords do you have?
I have 3 harpsichords. So this one is Petunia. They all have names.
Oh, good.
Petunia came with her name. And this would be, for those people in the know, a Zuckerman Flemish kit, because some people like to know where your harpsichord came from.
Tell us again.
Zuckerman, so that's the builder. Flemish, that is the type, and it's a kit, which meant you could buy it and bring it home and assemble your own harpsichord.
Oh, okay.
They were very popular in the 70s. I am not sure why everyone wanted a harpsichord in their garage, but they did. So,
okay. So all of your harpsichords have names. This one is Petunia.
This is Petunia, and then I have Bubba, and Bubba is a girl, but she's very heavy. For people that have been to the Auburn Symphony, the Christmas Messiah sing-along, Bubba is the harpsichord.
Okay.
If you've been to that you
All
have
right.
seen. So that is that one, and she's turquoise-ish.
All right.
And also built from a kit. And then this January actually, so not a year yet, I received a new harpsichord, brand new, built just for me from Amsterdam by a builder there.
Wow.
So,
wow. And what is that one's name?
that one's name is Beatrice.
Beatrice.
Because for Queen Beatrice of the Netherlands.
All right.
So, yeah,
Okay.
so.
That's wonderful. I've asked lots of musicians if they have a name for their instrument. You're the second person who has a name for their instruments.
I think, so Petunia was my first harpsichord, and I think if she hadn't come with a name, I might not have started naming everything, but obviously if one has a name, they all need a name.
Yes, okay. Why the harpsichord? Why are you interested in harpsichords?
Well, I started playing piano when I was little, like very little, and played piano all the way. And when I was 10, my parents took me on a trip to Colonial Williamsburg in Virginia, which is all set up like a colonial town. And before I went, my piano teacher said, oh, they have this thing called harpsichords there. Little Faith, bring your music with you, and they'll say, does anyone want to play the instruments? And you can there, which is really fun. Like, they'll ask, and they have them all ready to go. And so
you did. You took your music with you. Can I play?
Oh, yeah. I raised my hand really quick. Pushed everyone else out of the way. I will play that. And I loved them. So then I spent, like, the week running around asking at different places, can I play that harpsichord? And I found a paper I wrote when I came home, like, you know, what I did on my summer vacation. And I wrote, I love the harpsichord. When I grow up, I'm going to own one.
Wow.
I know.
Which was a lie. Now you own three.
I own three. And then I promptly forgot about the instrument. And I went to Sac State for piano. And then while I was there, one of the professors said, oh, do you want to just take some harpsichord lessons? Like for a semester, extra lessons. It's good experience for pianists to have that. And I said, oh, sure. And then I remembered that I loved the instrument beyond all else and finished my undergrad in piano, but then went off and did graduate work in harpsichord.
Graduate work in harpsichord. What do you like about the harpsichord?
I like that it's different. Not a lot of people play it, and so, you know, it's really unique.
You're the harpsichord player. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and so I like that I get to tell other people about it and share the instrument. It does not have dynamics like a piano, and so you have to be.
What do you mean dynamics?
So a piano, you have louds and softs when you press on your key,
and you can have echoey kind of thing with the pedals. Yeah.
The harpsichord has none of that.
Okay.
So it's kind of creating an illusion when you make people think they hear all that. So I like that part too. The brainy, figure it out. How do I share this and make it come alive?
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's time we hear you.
Okay.
Because you've let us know how much you love it, and how I get the impression that it's fun for you to play and fun to listen to and delightful. So I think we should pause here for a moment and get set up, and we'll be right back.
This piece is by Jan Pieterszoon Sweelinck, a Dutch composer from the 17th century. The title in English is Under the Linden Tree, and it is based on a rather naughty folk song about people sneaking out and kissing. So since this piece is a bit long, I will just be playing you a short excerpt of it so you can get a taste of what the harpsichord sounds like.
5, 4, 3, 2.
And we're back after listening to Faythe Vollrath. Faythe, what again was that?
That was Under the Linden Tree by Jan Pieterszoon Sweelinck, a 17th century composer from the Netherlands.
Okay. And our director had a question or an admiration, among other things. He was impressed by you doing two things, one thing with your right hand and one thing with your left hand, and somehow it worked. How is that? Of course, I think you said you had started piano at 3. Mm-hmm. That's basic and ordinary, right? You're doing two things.
It is. Yeah. That is just what happens when you spend a lot of time practicing. It's just part of playing the instrument.
Yes. Okay. And muscle memory and all. Yeah. And he also wanted to know, how often does an orchestra need a harpsichord?
Yeah, so it kind of depends on what repertoire they're doing. A lot of orchestras tend to do more classical, romantic pieces and later, and we only find harpsichord in Baroque music, so 1750 and earlier. And so because of that, I might only get scheduled on a concert once a year or once every other year, depending on...
a concert from in a specific orchestra?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so it really depends on the orchestra's scheduling and kind of what sort of pieces they're putting on their program.
So let's ignore the fact that we're sort of involved in a pandemic or the end of a pandemic. Before the pandemic, were you busy?
I was busy. Well, not a whole lot with orchestras, I should say. So I probably played once or twice a year with a modern symphony, and that's because I was rotating through several whose name I am on lists when they get to a piece they need me. But I also play with a lot of Baroque groups as well, and so then whenever they have a concert, they need a harpsichord all the time.
Okay,
since that's their music.
Yes,
so I'm busy. So it all kind of adds up. Lots of different groups. I play solo concerts as well, so that takes up some time too.
And how far do you go to play?
I play all over the U.S. and I've done some concerts in Europe as well.
Wow, that's wonderful. And they find out about you because of rumors, and because people have heard you, and because there are connections and ways to promote yourself.
Part of it. Also, being a musician, you need to be your own manager.
Oh, yeah.
So it's also me sending out resumes or me sending out concert proposals or things like that and making the connections on my own. So I wish I could just sit at home and everyone would call me and I could just play, and that would make me really happy.
Yeah.
But you have to do a lot of your own management as well.
Of course, it sounds like being a writer or an actor. So you said that you teach. You have told me that you teach music. Where do you teach?
Right now, I'm teaching at a private school in Roseville. During the pandemic, there weren't any concerts.
Yeah.
And so I started teaching as a way to make money.
Sure.
And I found I loved elementary music. It's
What?
lots of fun.
Uh-huh.
The school I'm at, I get to plan my own curriculum, and so we learn a lot of eclectic things. Like we learned scat singing in Louis Armstrong one week, and the next week we'll learn all about the harpsichord. So that's really fun. And I have a lot of musician friends who have been really gracious to come to class over Zoom, since they live like all over the U.S. And so they'll come and tell about their instruments and what they do, and so it's a great way for the students to get some real life input on music as well.
You get to push your own ideas about music and what's wonderful about it. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. How do they feel about the music?
Well, my main goal is hopefully that they just enjoy music, and I realize they're not going to like all different kinds, but I hope it inspires them to keep exploring music as they get older and find some genre that they like or some type of instrument.
Okay. And do they know that you perform?
They do. They do. Sometimes I make them watch my videos.
Oh, good.
So it's good for them to see their teachers out there, and we'll use it as an example for something. And then,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, you also teach at Davis.
I do.
And-
I teach harpsichord at UC Davis as
And
well.
how many classes do you have at Davis?
Not a lot, so I am just the private lesson instructor for harpsichord. So it depends on how many students there are for that semester.
Okay. Have you been doing teaching at Davis long?
I have not.
Okay.
I have just started there.
All right. And what's the difference between the students there and the students at the elementary school, aside from the fact that the age?
Some are a lot taller than the others.
Yeah.
There's a big difference. I think, honestly, fundamentally, music students, my goal of that, I want them to enjoy music, I think is the same for any age. And I want them to have the freedom that they can go out and explore more. So that music is not just this portion I'm teaching you, but there is so much out there. And what makes you inspired and you interested. So fundamentally, that's still the same at the bottom.
Okay. And now, I'm remembering taking piano lessons when I was 9, 10, 11, I guess, and my mother was in the kitchen and I was in the living room playing and not getting it. Oh, I'll never get this. What would be your response?
Oh, you need to practice it slower.
Okay, just keep doing it.
Your mom didn't yell from the kitchen, practice slower?
She said, yes, you will.
Oh, that's so...
No, I won't. No.
I think a lot of times it just helps to take a step backwards and a deep breath and slow it down to a speed that you can play it. And even me as a professional, I have times like that where I cannot play it and get it, and I have to make sure that I slow down and play it really slow because, as you said before, your fingers do learn muscle memory.
Yeah.
And so part of it's teaching them correctly how to play.
Yeah.
So.
And when you say correctly, you mean holding your hands?
Yeah, and playing the right notes in the right
sure.
order, And so
Yes. Yeah, notes in the right order, that's
always good.
That's just like writing, isn't it? Yes. Okay, tell me about performing with an audience. What do you like about that?
I like the feedback, I think, that I get off the audience. And pre-pandemic, I would not have had as good an answer for you, but I spent a lot of time making videos in my living room to post on YouTube and things, and so I had a lot of time to think, what is missing from this, from me at home as compared to in a concert hall. And when you are performing for a live audience, you really do feel energy off of them, and you can tell if the audience really likes a piece. You can tell if they really hate a piece.
How can you tell if they really hate a piece?
They get really wiggly. They start shifting and getting awkward, and you're like, oh, this is not a piece everyone likes. Okay. And so, but when people really enjoy a piece, then you can feel it in the silence. They're so silent and they're in there and they're with you with it. And so I miss the energy of performing live that way. But then I also really miss the interaction with people after a concert. So I miss someone coming up and saying, oh, this was my favorite part, or actually I did not like that part. And that's okay too, because music's different to everybody.
Sure.
But I love that interaction after, and what did you enjoy about this? And if any of your listeners ever come to one of my concerts, even by accident, please always come up and talk to me after, and I will open the harpsichord and show you how it works and everything. I think that's part of playing a unique instrument, is also educating about how it works and what it is. So.
Yeah. Okay. My director also wondered about, one of the reasons we wanted to hear it is that we expected something louder, something bigger, but it's not as big as we expected it to be, even though it doesn't have those those what did you call those? Like the pedals and the what are those?
Pedals.
No, that's
Oh,
not what it-
dynamics.
The
The
dynamics, yeah.
yes.
Even though it doesn't have the dynamics, it's a big sound.
Yeah, so harpsichords, since they're an older instrument, and they were originally around from about 1600 to 1750. And at that time, people had smaller chamber rooms that they were performing in, or they would have been used in churches, which had smaller sizes, or like different acoustics, sort of, as compared to, say, our large performance halls today. And so the harpsichord is really designed for that type of space.
So this is perfect.
So this is perfect. It probably wasn't as loud as you were expecting because the lid was facing this way, and so the sound was shooting this way. But yeah, this would be the type of room that a harpsichord would be used in. And so sometimes that's why you won't see them as much in a giant hall, or sometimes they have to be amplified in a giant hall. But they do have a very unique timbre, and timbre is the word for the sound quality. And because of that unique kind of, I don't know, light plinky sort of sound, it cuts through other sounds.
Okay.
And so, like, even in a modern orchestra, it'll still cut through a lot of that, and I don't need to amplify just because it's a different sound level than a violin, which has a smoother, warmer sound.
Yeah. Okay.
So it really works well in that way.
Good. Okay. I would like to talk about mistakes.
Okay.
Do you make mistakes?
All the time.
All the time.
Oh, yes.
And you heard her say that. This is a professional musician, and she makes mistakes all the time.
All the time. Now, not all professional musicians make mistakes all the time. Some are very good and can play flawlessly. I have never been a flawless player.
And
it's
yet,
just me.
you're in demand.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that's wonderful. And I talk to musicians about mistakes, and everybody expects to make a mistake. And what are you going to do? Start over? No. And what are you going to do? Think about that mistake when there are all these new. There are these new notes you have to keep playing. And I think that's a wonderful lesson for myself and a wonderful lesson for everyone, because you can't keep those mistakes in your head. You have to forget them and keep on going. Yeah. And how old are you?
I'm 40.
40.
I just turned
Okay.
40, yeah.
And so you're in my estimation, you're going to make fewer mistakes as the more you play, and you don't make as many as you used to.
That is true.
Please tell me that.
That's true. I find, honestly, the most mistakes I make is when I am very engrossed in a piece I'm playing. So if I'm now thinking more about, like, oh, I want to have this dramatic moment, or like, oh, I'm going to hold this chord more because it's so beautiful, or wait, I'm inspired, I'm going to add 5 more ornaments right here. So that's sort of when my mistakes start to come in, if I get more excited and start adding things to the piece in a performance or get really excited. So,
Okay.
Yeah, I think mistakes are just part of life, and it is true. How well do you handle them? You know, that's a big deal, and you are never going to have a flawless performance, and that's the beauty of live music, and some of that has been lost with the recording industry, because if I buy a CD, it is a flawless performance. And so it's kind of changed the expectation of performers that now when you go to a concert, you expect to hear that exact same thing.
Right.
But the beauty of live music is the performer might have a moment where they add and do things because they're inspired, and they might make a couple of mistakes.
Right.
So
Okay.
it goes hand in hand, I think.
I remember hearing about a fabulous opera singer who made a recording, and everybody said, "Oh, that's perfect. Oh, well then, I need to redo it." So she did, and I love that story. What advice do you have for beginning performers?
I think the biggest piece of advice is to think outside the box. There are jobs for anyone in whatever you want to be. I think if you're passionate and work hard, you can truly be whatever you want to be in life, or whatever kind of musician. But the days where you could just get a degree and then get an orchestra job that paid all your bills and you were settled for life, those days do not exist anymore, except for like very few orchestras. And so I think people need to be creative about what ways they can make music and how they can share that, and different ways that they can expand that. Or there's so much you can do with music. So I think it's thinking creatively, how can I share my art the best?
Okay. What about performing? What about advice about performing in general?
I think just keep doing it as much as you can. If you love performing, then play anywhere. There's so many places that you can play, you know, and you might not get paid for them all, but that's okay. It's good experience. And you can play in coffee shops or street corners, or in nursing homes you can play, or in churches, or just plan your own little concert. Or there's so many ways that you can share music.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. And yeah, what do you like about performing?
I like the thrill of it. I think there's some... I like being on stage. I like the stage lights on me. I'll tell you the story. When I was very small, I would go into our living room at night and sit at the piano, and I would turn like just the one light on. So I felt like I was on stage playing. So I've always loved that. I love to be that center of attention, and the lights are on me, and here I am, and watch me share. I love the energy of the crowd.
Here is Faythe Vollrath.
Yeah.
You came to see her, and now you get to listen.
Yes. So I kind of love that spotlight part, but I also just love the thrill of sharing the music and having people listen and be excited about it too. So I think there's a whole giant energy and excitement, the adrenaline of it.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love that part too.
Yes.
So.
And I just love being in I do, just like you do, we all do. We like to listen to music, whether it's live or recorded. But I just love breathing the same air as the musicians and the people around me. And I cannot stop moving. Granted, that's your test of whether there's a problem. But if I am hearing something that just gets me, I cannot stop moving. And I look around and nobody else is moving. And if something affects me, nobody else is weeping. But here I am. Oh goodness. Well, we have listened, and I have talked to Faythe Vollrath. Faythe Vollrath, who when the harpsichord is needed, plays for the Auburn Symphony and other organizations in the area and worldwide. That's great. If you're interested in the Auburn Symphony, log on to auburnsymphony.com, please. And she has a website. Her website is Faythe, Faythe, Vollrath.com. And there's a way to contact her through her website. So, oh my. Thank you very much for joining me. This has been wonderful.
Thank you for having me. It was lots of fun to talk about music and the harpsichord.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
I could tell. Thank you, Faythe. And thank you for watching.